Great. Thank you very much, Kelsey, and good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for attending this virtual session, virtual open house for the University Endowment Lands Service Structure and Governance Study. You see, we have about 22 attendees, so that's great. We are all trying to adjust to this new virtual world here, and thanks everybody for indulging. And hopefully soon we'll be able to meet in person one of these days. So. Again, thanks very much for attending. As we begin this evening, I'd like to acknowledge that the University Endowment Lands is located on the traditional territory, unceded and ancestral territory of the Musqueam people. Tonight, I'm joining you from Victoria, which is on the unceded traditional territory of the Lekwungen people. Again, thanks everybody for attending from wherever you may be this evening. My name is Dan Huang. I'm a senior planner and the project lead for the UEL governance study from Urban Systems. Joining me this evening is Kelsey Corky, who is a communications specialist in our Vancouver office. She will be our moderator. And also joining us this evening is Mackenzie Walker, who is a planner and engineer in our Vancouver office, who has been providing technical advice and technical analysis on this project throughout. The format of this evening is a Zoom webinar. Just a reminder to everybody, it is being recorded this evening and we'll make the recording available once it's completed. I have a presentation which is approximately 20 minutes. The entire session is set to run for an hour, but it depends on the types of questions that we get. Following the presentation, there will be a question and answer session. Please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen to type your questions, which will be read out by the moderator, by Kelsey and or myself, and then answered by myself to the best of my ability. So at the Q&A session, I'll read out the question. We'll try to answer it the best we can. If for some reason we can't provide a fulsome answer, we'll make sure that we post the question and the answer onto the website following this meeting. With that, I'm just going to turn it over to Kelsey really quickly for a quick Zoom poll. We've got 2 questions for the audience as we start this meeting, and then we've got 3 questions at the end of the presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kelsey for a quick Zoom poll.
Thanks, Dan. So I have just launched the poll. So this is really just to get a sense of who is in the room, the virtual room this evening. So the first question is, where do you live? If you do happen to live in the UL, please complete the second question, which is, what area of the UEL do you live in? So I'll just wait a couple of minutes. The votes are coming in. We're almost halfway there. We're about 80% of the way. All right, so I'm going to end the poll now and share out the results. So about 80% of you do live in the UEL, 15% are outside, and then we have about 40% that are in Area A, followed by 25% in Area D and 15% in Area B. So I will stop sharing these results and pass it over to Dan.
Great, thanks, Kelsey. Is my screen back up on sharing? I'm going to click the next slide. To the next slide. Great, thanks very much. I can't see what you're seeing, so I'm glad to see that Kelsey's nodding. So, just a little bit about Urban Systems. We're an employee-owned firm formed in British Columbia in Kamloops in 1975. We have about 15 offices across Western Canada, from BC through to Manitoba. We specialize in community development for local governments, First Nations, senior government, as well as the private sector. We have a team of planners, engineers, finance and local government specialists from our Victoria and Vancouver offices that are working on this UEL governance study. As a team, we have broad and significant experience with recent governance studies. Most recently, I've been involved with the incorporation study in Salt Spring Island, as well as an amalgamation study in Duncan and North Cowichan, as well as other studies in the capital region here in Victoria and Pemberton. As a background, for those of you, many of you who live in UEL will know, the University Endowment Lands has a very unique governance structure, has a population of around 3,200. It's the only urban area in British Columbia that is directly administered by the province under the authority of the University Endowment Land Act. There's been a long history and interest in UEL governance since its founding. In recent years, in 1987, I guess that's not that recent ago, a committee of residents was established to look at the question of incorporation of UEL for the first time. Some studies were begun, but it was never put to a vote at that time. In 1995, there was an incorporation referendum that was held, which failed at that time. 599 voted no, 65%, with 318 voting yes. So 65% no, 35% yes. In 2007, the Community Advisory Council, or CAC, was formed with 7 residents elected, and the CAC continues to this day providing advice to UEL administration. Interest in governance has continued in the 2010s from the CAC and UEL residents. This is due to the fact that the community is facing a number of growing pressures, including future development pressures, changing demographics, infrastructure needs, as well as a representation gap. Urban Systems was selected by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs to undertake this UEL service structure and governance study, which we're calling the UEL governance study, in 2020. The objectives of this study is to provide a comprehensive study to inform the province about UEL service needs, key interests, and governance considerations. The main objectives of the study is to clarify the current state of the UEL, projecting the future state of the UEL in the next 20 or so years, identifying potential service delivery gaps, gathering perspectives of the community and other key interests through engagement, including sessions like tonight, assessing potential impacts of service delivery transition, as well as understanding the potential impacts of change. It's also important to clarify what this study is, as well as what the study is not. This is not an incorporation study. It's also not about picking solutions or recommending options. There are no predetermined outcomes from our work. Our study is about gathering facts, technical analysis, and perspectives about the potential future state of the UEL. The information and perspectives will be gathered throughout the study process. This will include opportunities to hear from everyone who would be impacted by a potential change. The province will then assess how to best move forward towards any change as a potential future step. As mentioned, we began this process in the spring of 2020 with our background review and a review of current services. This included the development of a community profile, which we'll talk about in a minute, future projections, a catalog of existing services, and summary of services that are being provided. We are currently in phase 1 engagement, which is gathering perspectives from the public as well as key interested groups through winter and as we soon enter into spring of 2021. We were delayed a little bit when we started this process in spring of 2020 due to COVID as well as the provincial election, but we're well on track to have our engagement through round 1. And following this engagement, we'll move into an in-depth assessment of the services and structures through the spring, come back to the community and key interested groups late summer and early fall before concluding the project in the fall of 2021. A bit of context about the community. As many of you are aware, it is surrounded on all sides by the city of Vancouver to the east, the University of British Columbia to the west, and Musqueam Nation to the south. It's approximately 1,200 hectares in size, but of that, a significant portion, or 70% of it, is comprised of Pacific Spirit Regional Park, which is a well-beloved green space, which is managed by Metro Vancouver. Overall, the lands are situated within the Metro Vancouver Regional District, with representation through your electoral area director, Director McCutcheon, representing electoral area A. As part of this study, we prepared a detailed profile of the community, which talks about the community in greater detail, some of the demographic components by each neighborhood, and that's provided on the project website, which we'll have further in this presentation, in both English as well as simplified Chinese. There are 4 neighborhoods which vary in their demographic composition, as well as population and median age. Area A has approximately 490 people with a median age of just under 32 years. Area B with 390 people at a little bit older, 38.6. Area C, 340 people with a median age of 41.6. And then Area D with the largest population, as well as the largest potential growth, has 1,950 people with the youngest median age at 26.5 years. Looking at the households, all of areas A, B, and C have virtually all single family households. Area A with 185, with a 65-35 split between owners and renters. Area B with 145 households with an 82-18 split. Area C with 120 households at a 74-26 split. And Area D with 1,050 households with a 35% renter, 65% owner split. And then as well as in Area D, the split between single family houses and multifamily is 40-60. So of those households, 40% of the households are currently single family and 60% are multifamily. As part of this study and in previous studies, we've looked at the various service providers that provide local services to UEL residents. Those local services are provided by a number of agencies under a variety of agreements and arrangements, as shown on the table on the left. UEL administration and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs provides many local services to the residents of UEL, including land use planning, water, sewer, stormwater, and local roads. UEL also obtains some services from adjacent government agencies. So fire is provided by the City of Vancouver, police through the RCMP, major roads are provided through the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, or MOTI. Regional parks, as mentioned, are provided by Metro Vancouver. TransLink is provided by Transit is provided by Transit. UEL also provides contracts from other sources. So recycling is provided by through Recycle BC on contract through GFL Environment, and enforcement is provided by the Corps of Commissioners. And UEL also provides some services to others. So it obtains bulk water from Metro Vancouver, and then in turn provides that water to UBC. As mentioned as part of this project, a series of 9 service highlights have been researched and prepared for this study and are presented on the website in PDF form in both English and simplified Chinese. The 9 service highlights developed include general administration, protective services, fire, police, bylaw enforcement, waste management and recycling, development services, which is land use planning and building inspection, roads, transit and cycling, parks and recreation, water services, stormwater management, sanitary and combined sewer. These service highlights describe the current services in detail. And if any of you had seen some fact sheets that were presented in 2017 that were previously prepared by the ministry. These build upon those 2017 fact sheets. We encourage all of you to take some time to review the service highlights on the project website, which is www.uelgovernance.ca. So just a quick example, roads, transit, and cycling. Each of the service highlights provides some key facts of the service. So in this example, kilometers of roads, kilometers of local laneways, and number of streetlights. It identifies the key responsibilities of those services. As I mentioned, MOTI is responsible for major roads. UEL is responsible for local roads, as well as maps and graphics within the service highlight. It describes who operates and maintains those services, as well as identifies any upcoming projects and initiatives. So again, we encourage all of you who are interested in the various service categories to review the service highlights at your leisure from the website. Some of the key issues facing university endowment lands. UBC growth is a factor. UBC, as you all know, is a major regional destination. It attracts 56,000 students and 15,000 faculty and staff, and they access UBC through UEL. UBC is a key driver for the Broadway SkyTrain extension, which currently is planned to Arbutus, with possible extensions to UBC in the future. Within UEL, there are pressures of development. The Musqueam Nation, as you know, owns a 9-hectare parcel of land in Area D. The Leland development, this is a potential mixed-use development over the next 10 years or so, which could add approximately 2,300 additional people. Service delivery, as you just saw there on the table, there are multiple service providers with multiple agreements and multiple arrangements. This can make it challenging to plan strategically, provide, regulate, enforce, and finance those local services. And finally, over the years, there's been a lot of discussion about representation. The CAC, the Community Advisory Council, and the ADP, the Advisory Design Panel, they are a group of, two groups of volunteers in the community who provide advice to UEL administration. But the UEL administration is the authority, along with the ministry, who does pass bylaws in conjunction with the Minister of Municipal Affairs. Throughout this process, we will be including opportunities like tonight and others for engagement and input from all key interests who may be impacted by a potential change in UEL governance. This includes UEL residents and the community advisory groups, as just mentioned, the CAC and the ADP. We've been working closely with UEL administration to get a better sense of the services that are being delivered, the agreements, as well as the financing. As part of this process, we're also engaging with Musqueam First Nation, both as a neighbor, as traditional territory holders, as well as potential developers through the Leland development. Various agencies include Metro Vancouver, City of Vancouver, as well as University of British Columbia. And then those service providers, as mentioned, some of them are from the province. So roads, working with MOTI, police, with the RCMP, taxation and finance through other ministries. And then finally, there are other key interested groups that we're also engaging with, which include TransLink, Coast Mountain Bus, and others as well. So we've already engaged with a number of these agencies throughout this process, and we'll continue to do so. And we also did present to the CAC once back in July of 2020, and I'll also be providing a bit of an update to the CAC this coming Monday at their next March meeting. So we really encourage the public to get involved in this process and to provide their input. We, again, have started gathering this information through meetings, interviews with those various key interested groups. It's been virtual at this stage through phone calls, through Zoom, through Microsoft Teams. We've just launched at the beginning of March our community engagement platform, using the tool through Bang the Table. So through this portal is our website at www.uelgovernance.ca. This is our main information portal. This provides the project background, any updates to the schedule, the community profile and the service highlights, as previously mentioned, as well as frequently asked questions. And so this is the starting point where we hope that people can go to find out information about the project, learn more about the project, and ask any questions, as well as take the community survey, which just launched at the beginning of March and is open until March 31st. At this time, since March 1st, so it's just been 10 days, we've had over 500 visits to the website, so we're really encouraged by that, and even more so encouraged that we've had 113 survey responses to date since opening just 10 days ago, and the survey will be open for another 20 days. We've also established 2 social media accounts, one on Twitter at UEL Governance and one on Facebook, UEL Governance. Both social media sites will be used for posting information only and hopefully driving folks to the website. That's really the forum that we encourage people. The website is the forum where we really encourage people to find out more information, ask the questions, and so we can provide those answers on the website. If you're looking for specific answers for questions, you can send us an email. Like I say, you can send those questions via the website, or you can send a direct email to us at uelgovernance@urbansystems.ca. Finally, some of you may have seen a one-page flyer that was distributed throughout the community, which was advertising this event as well as the website. There have been some newsletters through the electoral area director, and we're hoping to work with CAC and others to get the word out through their community newsletters. And as well, Director McCutcheon has been providing updates in her EA director newsletters as well too. So we thank all of the community organizations as well as Director McCutcheon for continuing to get the word out on this project. So really from here, the next steps is to, as we continue consulting with the key interested groups through March and April, we encourage folks to visit the website and fill out the community survey and ask any questions that you might have up until the end of March. Through to April, we'll continue to follow up with those key interested groups as mentioned, the different provincial agencies, City of Vancouver, Metro Vancouver, and UBC. We'll then summarize the community and agency feedback to date. And then starting in May, we'll go into more detailed analysis and in-depth discussion and assessment of some of the key services, financial aspects, challenges, and potential opportunities. We'll come back to the community and, I say we'll come back to the community, but that engagement portal, the website will stay open throughout this whole time. So engagement will continue from now throughout the whole process, but we'll come back with specific rounds of engagement in August and September for round 2. We'll follow up with those key interested groups in September and October. We'll prepare our draft and final reporting for conclusion of the study in fall of 2021. As noted earlier, at the conclusion of the study, the province will then assess how best to move forward towards any change as part of any potential future steps. So that's pretty much all I had at this stage before we open it to questions and answers. If you do have any questions, please type them into the Q&A feature in Zoom at the bottom of the panel. With that, I will just quickly turn it over to, actually I won't turn it over to Kelsey at this point because that will be at the end of this. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A panel at the bottom. So we have one question that was asked, which was data sources. And so some of the data sources for the demographics include Stats Canada and the census. Some of the work that was done through the Area D neighborhood plan as well. One of the challenges with Stats Canada is that the census areas don't align exactly with the StatsCan polygons. And so in addition to the Stats Canada data, we used analytics through a company called Environics, as well as using TransLink's regional transportation model inputs. And so using that information, that allowed us to align better the data that we created for each of the individual areas, Area A, Area B, Area C, and Area D. So thank you for that question. Great, there's a lot more questions coming in, which is great. Could you please expand on the engagement so far? With which groups have you engaged so far, and what have you heard? And so we started our engagement with all of the organizations that provide services to UEL. And so for all of those service highlights, we engaged with all of the service providers, be it Ministry of Transportation for roads, be it Public Service and Safety Agency who provide RCMP services, City of Vancouver for the fire department. We also will be engaging with UBC in the coming weeks. And then we work very closely with the UEL administration in understanding the other services that they provided for all of the local services that UEL administration provides. And then for those contracted services like TransLink, Coast Mountain Bus, the Corps of Commissionaires, as well as CGL Environmental, we engage with them as well too, just to understand those services. On the community front, this is where we're starting to engage with the community. And then, as I mentioned, we had an initial presentation to the CAC back in July of 2020. At this point so far, what we've heard is just understanding the services, understanding what the challenges are of the existing services, who provides them, what are the agreements, and then again, as we move into more in-depth, as we get into the next phase, that's when we'll start digging a little deeper into those services. The next question is, who asked for this study to be undertaken? How is it being paid for? And why was it commissioned? So again, probably over the last, given some of the previous history, I'd say over the last 10 years, there have been calls from UEL residents, as well as the CAC and others to really look at some of the governance challenges facing university endowment lands, as well as looking into the future with potential demographic changes and impacts of development. It was really, there was definitely interest from both residents, CAC, and elected officials to ask the province to undertake this study. So the province has commissioned the study. It's being paid for by the ministry, and those our work will go back to the ministry for them to determine what the next steps are. As I mentioned, there really are no predetermined steps at this point. There are no specific options at this point. It's really looking at the analysis. What does UEL look like in 2021 with respect to services? What does the community think that the current challenges are today in 2021, as well as looking forward 10 years from now and 20 years from now, what could that look like? Will or is the data or responses from the service providers be available to residents? And so we'll be summarizing those and providing those probably in a newsletter or feedback in the website. We're compiling basically the information. The responses from the service providers are mostly what you see in those service highlights to date. We were looking for, who provides the service, What are the operations and maintenance and capital questions on that, and what are the challenges and opportunities of those services. So most of the information that we've gotten to date from those service providers are provided in those service highlights. And then as we dig deeper, we'll also be trying to find out more information from those service providers. One of the questions was, how do you determine the right amount of time to leave a survey open? Is 1 month standard? Certainly, it's 1 month is an appropriate amount of time. We acknowledge that there is spring break coming up next week. I'm not sure who's going anywhere, but there are folks that can travel within British Columbia and maybe go camping. Usually at least 2 to 3 weeks is at least the minimum. We extended that to a month. If we're not seeing the uptake, and I'm happy to say that we are getting good uptake at this point, 113. 1 month is a reasonable time frame. If for some reason that there are people who phone us or emails saying we need more time, we could think about extending that. But at this time, 1 month is a pretty standard time frame and a reasonable amount of time, hopefully to provide those opportunities for people to engage. One of the questions then, how will the information in the survey be used, which is a good segue from the survey itself. Once we get and compile that information, it's going to be important to use that, to look at that information to gauge the interests from the community members, in particular their thoughts on the services provided in UEL. The survey talks about which services do you most appreciate, as well as how is your satisfaction with those services. And so it really starts to really break down which services are most impactful to you as a resident, as well as what is your level of satisfaction to that. And so really, that's the starting point to find out, how are you feeling about the services that you're currently provided, who's providing them, and then moving forward, how best can we improve those services, and what might that look like moving forward. One of the questions is, have you engaged yet with Musqueam First Nation, and if so, what have you heard from them? At this point, the ministry and the province have reached out to Musqueam. Meetings are forthcoming at this point in the months of March and April. There are kind of two parts of Musqueam First Nation. There's the nation government themselves, as well as the Musqueam Development Corporation. And so the province has reached out to both and had some initial reach outs to them, but it's the months of March and April which we'll be reaching out to those key interests. One of the questions is, when do you address governance? And so it is called the UEL governance study. As we move into the next phase of this, when we go into that deep dive into the services, we will be looking at the governance challenges and the governance opportunities. As I mentioned, we won't be looking at a specific governance option, but we will be identifying governance is really all about decision making. Who makes the decisions? How are decisions made? And is there a challenge with those services, governance of those services? And are all of the services challenged because of the governance model, or just some of those services? And so that's kind of the question that we'll be looking with as we move into that. And like I say, this is not specifically to look at specific options, but it's really to start unpacking where are those governance challenges, and what are some of the different models that other communities use, and other approaches that might be used at some point in the future. The one of the questions that one of the attendees suggests that this study is essentially repeats what was done a few years ago. The questions seem designed to achieve specific answers. Why haven't you asked about lack of representation? Again, we will move. Those are open-ended. The last question is something that we look forward to hearing from folks. Like I say, we're starting with those questions of the services themselves. There was some study done as the submitter asked that question. There has not been a fulsome study like this done, which then takes the information and then looks at some of the potential structures of the services. And so we hope to take that information, do a bit of some more detailed analysis in that next phase. And that includes, again, questions about representation, how are decisions made, and what are some of the challenges and options and opportunities that could come out of that. Will the report and analysis provided to the government be given to either the CAC or residents? There will be a reporting out of the report, and there will be a public document that will be shared both with the CAC and the residents at the conclusion of this study. Question about social media. I understand comments will not be open on the study's social media, as it will only be to post information. Any particular reason for that? We are using the Bang the Table website and the project website. That is the forum by which we hope to engage the community through the questions there. Those questions then will be visible for other community members to view, and that is the forum through the Bang the Table forum that we'll be using to have that commons of discussion. And so both Twitter and Facebook are used as information sources. We know that there will be discussions through other groups. The CAC has its own Facebook group. We encourage that dialogue within those groups, but we're using the Bang the Table site as the point of context for all of those discussions. So we look forward to hopefully everybody going to the website and using the tools within the Bang the Table website for that discussion. What standing do the Musqueam have in this matter? It is acknowledged that all of the lands are on the traditional territories of the Musqueam. As mentioned, the province is going to be working and consulting with Musqueam, and also as mentioned, they are both nation holders and rights holders. They have a reserve just south of UEL, and then they also are, as many of you know, have development aspirations through the Leland development, and so they have a multitude of interests, which through this study, us and the province are going to be working with Musqueam on that. Will you be providing models for governance and representation? Through our work, we won't be providing specific options, but we will be providing some best practices or some sample options in some sample communities for that. But as part of the actual discussion, as part of the actual analysis, we will be looking at the representation, some of the opportunities for potential governance improvement to improve effectiveness and efficiency. But again, we won't necessarily be providing specific options at this stage. Question, why is incorporation not part of this study? As I mentioned before, the province is looking to create, to get as much information as possible to identify what the feeling of the community is currently in 2021, what the next 10 and 20 year review looks like, as well as look at the different structures for future consideration. Once the province has that information, they will then assess how to best move forward towards any change as a potential future step. So as mentioned, at this point, it's not an incorporation study. That could come out of that once the province kind of reviews and assesses how it moves forward. But as part of the terms of reference for our study, it was not specifically about an incorporation study. We know that's probably not what everybody wants to hear at this point, but at this point, those are the terms of reference of our engagement. We hope to at least provide a fulsome understanding of the services to date, some of the challenges with respect to how those services are delivered, the challenges and opportunities with respect to representation for review by the province moving forward. What is the relevance of the present survey feedback ending March 31st vis-a-vis the many direct contacts your company have already provided their input? Great question. Thank you. The contacts that we've interviewed, those are the service providers. And so when we interview MOTI, when we interview TransLink, we're asking them questions as the service provider. What services are you providing? What are your operations costs? What are your future capital plans in the future? We're really looking for feedback from the community as the receivers of those services. What services do you most appreciate? What are the ones that are the most challenging to you? And where would you like to see potential review and changes to that to be reviewed? Few more questions are coming in. Sorry, I'm just managing a couple of different screens here to make sure I've got the right screen up here. There was no place in the survey to talk about wanting to change the governance structure. How do we make the government aware of our concerns on this matter? Please pose that in your comments, both in the survey as well as through the Bang the Table. The purpose of this study is to start that process again, start that conversation with the community, so that the ministry can review, the perspectives from the community today, to see if what the perspectives of the community here are in 2021. There have been studies done previously, but communities change, demographics change. And so this is, for some it may seem a repeat, but we want to make sure that we capture the current community as well as an understanding of what this community is looking for in the future. Could you please repeat how one gets on to Bang the Table? So Bang the Table is the company which has created the website, which is www.uelgovernance.ca. I will just put it here on the screen if we're sharing screen. And so that is the website is the one that is the Bang the Table forum. So the way the Bang the Table company structures the website has both the survey, any frequently asked questions, as well as links to the question board. And so if you input your question into that question board, we'll answer those questions on that board, and then you'll see a record of all of those questions, as well as the background information for the services through the service highlights, as well as the community profile. So I do mention Bang the Table, but it is the website that we're really hoping that people go to, which is uelgovernance.ca. Will there be a value for money analysis? We will look at the services. We will look at how those services are financed, we will look at how those services that are being provided compare to some other communities of both similar size, as well as potential similar makeup. And so, let's say, what is the cost per kilometer of road? What is the cost for wastewater, for water? So we'll be looking those and comparing those to some other communities and say, are they relatively comparable for that? In the financial administration section under service highlight number 1, there is more information that you'll find there as well. And we'll be looking at that as we move forward into more in-depth analysis. I think it might be the same user who asked, are you looking at relative property taxation mill rates, such as the City of Vancouver versus UEL versus UNA? So the City of Vancouver, obviously as the neighbor, we will be looking at those services that are being provided. And as mentioned, some of the services you already get from the City of Vancouver, like fire. And then as mentioned, we'll be looking at other communities of similar size, in that 3,000 to 5,000 community. But again, you're a pretty unique community because it's very urbanized. Some of the smaller communities aren't necessarily as urban as UEL is. So yes, we will be doing that financial analysis. You speak mostly government, Will. Are you dealing directly with different ministries? So our work is, so the project has been awarded to us by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. And so that is we're working closely with the ministry, both as the sponsor of this project, as well as the ministry that actually provides those services. And so we are able to get information from the ministry, as well as work with the ministry who will be, that we will be reporting to as well too, so that the province will then assess how to move forward from there. How will your value for service analysis be available to the community? There will be as we come out to the engagement, the next engagement, there will be, information that will be listed publicly. We haven't, to be honest, we haven't started that analysis, deep analysis at this point. So I can't really say exactly what that's going to look like. There'll be a series of some comparison charts with some other communities, as mentioned, of similar size and similar geography. But some of those tables could be that we'll be using on our analysis. Will be part of that next round of consultation to get input and feedback from both the community as well as the service providers. We've got about 5 minutes left here, and if you have any, we wanted some time to, how many calls are on this? There's about 20, actually, about 27 participants. So about 20, just over, 27 participants on the call. We do have a few questions, poll questions at the end. If there are any opportunities, if there are any additional questions, please go to the website and put your question there. You can also email uelgovernance@urbansystems.ca. We encourage everyone to complete the survey if you haven't. Encouraging, again, you to stay involved by visiting the project website, which will be the main page for information and updates. We also encourage you to review the community profile and the service highlights that are available in both English and simplified Chinese. And we have 2 or 3 exit questions that we wanted to bring up to the community here and get people to fill those out if possible. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kelsey.
Thanks, Dan. So we have 3 questions. I'll just launch the poll right now. So the first question is, did you find the information tonight helpful? The second question is multiple choice. How did you find out about tonight's meeting? And then as you scroll down in that window, the third question is, have you completed the survey yet? So you can, the votes are already starting to come in, which is fabulous. Just wait a couple seconds here. We're about halfway there. There's a few more left to vote. All right, I'm going to end the poll now and share the results. All right, so 82% of you found the information somewhat helpful. Just under half of you found out about the tonight's meeting through email, followed by other. So you're more than welcome to put into the question and answer what your other means to you, if you'd like. And then, have you completed the survey yet? About 35% of you have, and 35% of you have not, but plan to. And another 29% said you have not. So fantastic. Thank you all for participating in that poll.
Great. Thanks, Kelsey. Thanks very much. There were 2 other questions here, and since we have 2 minutes, I will answer those 2, and then again, thank everybody for their time. Well, the first one was the first additional question. You mentioned 2 input avenues for us in the UEL who depend on services provided in your project. One is via the open questions of the survey. What was the other one? And so again, there's the survey itself. There is a question section within the website that you can ask a question there. And then I guess if there's a third one, it's the email address, which is on your screen here, which is uelgovernance@urbansystems.ca. So all of those avenues will reach us and we'll provide answers to you. If you do email us at the Urban Systems email, we'll provide you those answers, as well as we'll post your question and the answer on the website so that everybody has a running track of all the questions that are being answered. The last question, is this a service operations review or a real governance study? I would say that this is a governance study, but it is phase, is it the initial phase of a governance study? It's one where we are, again, looking at the services that are being provided, the current state of those services, the future drivers and impacts of those services, how decisions are being made, what the real challenges are facing both the service providers as well as you as the community, and what some of those conditions would be for future change. And so while, again, it probably doesn't provide those that are looking for either an incorporation study coming out of this, this hopefully will provide the province with some better information about what the services look like today, what the challenges are in the future, and some of the potential pathways to move forward. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of your evening to join us tonight. We look forward to hearing from the community through the survey or through your questions. I look forward to presenting on Monday to the CAC. Yes, please visit the website and complete the survey if you haven't done so already. So with that, thank you once again. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great evening. Thanks so much.